What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Before we get started with tonight's episode, which is a really fun interview, I just wanted to do a couple housekeeping notes. First of all, there are some bingos on the market. That's right. There are a total of 9 early solid-state bingos from Belgium, which have made their way over to southwest Pennsylvania. 5 are New Orleans from Surmo, and then 4 are Old Brussels, which is made by Banco. Now, Banco is a manufacturer that I haven't heard of, but I do know that New Orleans is one of the games that Surmo made in 1984. If you look at the cabinet artwork for New Orleans and compare it to Bally's Continental, it's almost a carbon copy. Continental, for those who don't know, was Bally's last bingo that they produced, and in fact, the whole order was shipped overseas to Belgium. And from this, the factory in Belgium took the mechanisms and playfield layout and all that good stuff and made their own manufacturing and created their own bingos from there. These solid-state bingos are a blast to play. I haven't played these 2 particular titles. In fact, the only solid-state bingo I've played was a new Continental Golden. But these are 6-card machines, all of which have the feature set of Bally's Dixieland. Dixieland was the last EM 6-card, and that had 6 separate cards with separate number layouts. It had super lines. It had double scoring and double scoring via the magic number. And it had corner scoring, which could be enabled via rollover. So there's a lot going on just by default in this machine, and then whatever solid state features that they introduced, which I'm not familiar with, are also in there. So these are a good thing to look up for anybody who's interested. I can get you in touch with the gentleman who's selling them. And he's looking to sell them in a lot. Now, keep in mind, this probably came from an operator who was running them on sites, and so that's why there's so many duplicates of the same title. He does say that the back glasses are in excellent condition and the playfields are perfect, which is not unusual. The Belgian-made bingos use these plastic-coated playfields, and they just hold up marvelously well. I mean, they never have a wear problem that I've seen from the pictures that I've seen. I have had my hands on a couple different ones, and playfields, that is, and beautiful. And even if they were dirty, they would clean up amazingly well. So, worth a look. Let me know if anybody's interested, and I'll get you in touch. All right, the next housekeeping item is t-shirts. We have t-shirts for sale again. This is the same design that we had last time. Ryan Clater illustration, and they're on the same high-quality t-shirt. If anybody's interested, there will be a link in the show notes, and there will also be a link on our website. And please order those if you're interested. If we have enough interest, then I'll go ahead and put in the order, and if not, then I'll refund everybody's money, and we'll go about our merry way. But I've had enough requests for another run of the t-shirts that I thought it was time. If you have any questions on t-shirt ordering, then let me know. If you need to do something custom, like multiple shirts or something of that nature, you want to break on shipping or whatever the case may be, just let me know and we'll work something out. All right. Now let's get into the show. What I've been doing for the past week or so has been going with my family on a cross-country trip. We went to Kentucky to visit some relatives, and from there I went to southern Indiana to pick up a new game and to drop off a different game. So I think that's enough lead-in. Let's listen to the show. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge, and with me is Steve Ridge. Steve, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing, Nick?
I can't complain. Got
Good.
a new game?
Got a new game?
Life is good.
Yep, sure. Did you get a new game?
I did. I did indeed.
And I got a new game.
Hey.
Funny how that works out.
It is. So, Steve here contacted me. He got a Bally Turf King, which is a 1950 one-ball horse race game, and he asked if I might be interested in picking that up. And I suggested that we do a swap. So you got a baby Pac-Man.
Yep.
And how do you feel? You going to take care of that baby?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, she's a good-sized baby, so I don't think she's going to be leaving the basement for a while.
Yeah. So Turf King, got it all loaded up, and I'm excited to dig into that.
Good. I'm so glad to see you get it.
My daughter and I are probably going to clean that up. I'm going to teach her how to work on bingos.
There you go.
And start her with one ball there. They have very similar mechanisms. So can you tell me a little bit about how you came into possession of the Turf King?
Well, a friend of mine and yours, Brent Griffith from Broken Token podcast, his friend Jimmy, that he talks about a lot on the podcast, had a warehouse where he had all of his games, and they've had a couple sales at that warehouse, and I helped with the last sale, and that in the warehouse is actually an old school building. So there's a bunch of different rooms everywhere. And the Turf King was sitting back in this one room by itself with like a bunch of other equipment. No other games in this room. So people that were there for the sale, they didn't even really see it sitting back there. So after the sale, Jimmy was going to sell that building. Well, so there was still a lot of stuff in that building that had to be cleared out. So we were down there one Saturday helping Brent and Jimmy, and there was a whole bunch of other guys there too, helping clear out this old school building / coin op warehouse. And I said, "Hey Jimmy," I said, "what are you going to do with that old bingo machine back there?" I said, "That back glass is pretty cool looking. I think I'd like to take that." He says, "Well, I don't know." He says, I'm thinking about selling it." And then he started snapping pictures of it. And that's all fine and good, it's Jimmy's game. So the next week we go back, and there's still more stuff to clean out. And he's like, "Hey Steve," he says, "why don't you take that bingo home with you?" I'm like, "Jimmy, what am I going to do with it?" I said, "How am I going to get it home?" I said, "This thing's a monster." And he says, "Either you take it home or it's going in the dumpster." It's like, well, geez, I can't let it go in the dumpster. And so this was like January of this year, 2015. And you hadn't even started your podcast yet. So I didn't even know anything about you. And here I am hauling this bingo game home. So it was me and Brent, my son Michael, and a couple other guys. We lifted it up into the back of the pickup truck, and we brought it home to my house. So when we get it home, it's only me, Michael, and my wife, Angie. And we're sitting there looking at this thing like, how the hell are we going to get this thing out of the back of this pickup truck? So Michael and I manhandled it, believe it or not.
With everything installed in the game.
With everything installed in the game. Not like what you and I just did. Right. Everything installed in the game. And then we put it on these furniture dollies, and we got it into my garage where it sat. And then...
No, you had a casualty, right? One of the furniture dollies?
Oh yeah. One of the furniture dollies didn't make it because the weight of the game collapsed the Harbor Freight furniture dolly. So
Yeah,
so yeah. This thing's a monster.
it's heavy.
So that's the first time we moved it.
Right.
So uh, we ended up selling our house, which wasn't on the market at the time. That's a whole other story in and of itself. And we moved up here to Salem, Indiana. Of course, closing dates didn't work out right, so we had to move our entire house into storage, and then from storage to the house up here in Salem. And so we've moved that game a total of 3 times.
So did you lift it onto the back of a truck?
No. The other 2 times we used the Harbor Freight furniture dollies and pushed it up the ramp into a U-Haul.
Wow.
That was a little bit easier, but nowhere near as easy as what we just did. Tell them what we did.
All right. So
and what I should have done.
well, yeah. The whole thing is if you know how these things are assembled, and because of my familiarity with these games and the bingos, which came after, I just happen to know that you can take them apart. Well, in this game, all of the mechanisms are stored on a board that's underneath the playfield. And that board contains these heavy motors, which are normally in the back box of a bingo. So in a bingo, all the weight's concentrated in the head. The cab you can lift with your little finger.
I see.
But in these games, the design of the cabinet is such that it weighs a bunch by itself. And then you have this huge, heavy board, which is made very rigidly so that you can do work on it easily just by sliding it out. But the problem is it weighs, I don't know, 100 pounds,
At least.
just that board.
Yeah.
So you can slide the whole thing out if you unhook all the Jones plugs and then just set it aside and then take the playfield out. And the biggest thing is the glass, too.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing how to remove the glass. It's one of those one-piece assemblies where the lock bar, the glass, and the side rails are all connected, and they all come off at the same time. So that works very similarly to a bingo. There's a wing nut. There's supposed to be 2 wing nuts. They're very large, but they're tucked way up inside, and you got to avoid the button mechanisms and so forth that are in there right beside it. So it's easy to miss. And once you loosen that, you can lift the whole thing out. But that also weighs a considerable amount.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So all told, we probably removed 3/4 of the weight from the thing,
Mm-hmm.
then lifted the cab. And Michael, your son, and yourself and I able to move that in there, no problem.
Yeah.
And
I wish I'd have thought to do that those 3 other times that we moved it.
it's all what you know. And you don't want to, if you don't know how it's constructed, you don't want to damage it by trying to do
Right.
something, like that. So I applaud you for doing that. And you have way more courage than I do. That's the first time I would have said, I got to find somebody who knows something about these things. So it took you 3 times, right?
Yeah. Moved it 3 times.
Before you got sick of moving it.
Yeah.
So, and you had it in your garage, but your games are in another part of your house.
Yes.
So,
yes.
That would have been another move.
Well, and it was funny the day that we moved in. We had moved Turf King separate, from the moving company because it was in a different place, and it was already sitting in the garage. And these moving guys, they were young guys, 20, 21, 22 years old. So yeah, we'll pick that thing up. We'll take it down that basement for you. I'm like, no, I don't want it in the basement. I mean, because at the time I hadn't talked to you yet,
Mm-hmm.
and so I didn't know that you were coming to get the game. But even if I was going to keep the game, it was going to stay in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though the basement is a walkout, there is no way. There's
Not with
absolutely
everything
no way.
loaded in that
Not
thing.
with everything loaded in it. And at the time, I didn't know any better I thought that's the way you moved it.
Right.
So and they kept saying, this is your last chance. If you want it down there, it's like, no, I don't want it down there because if I get it down there, it's never coming out.
Right. Yep. So that's good, and it's loaded up. I can't wait to get it home, dig into it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk a little bit about you and your collecting. How do you get into the pinball collecting hobby?
Well, the collecting part of it, I only got into about 5 years ago when I found out that a friend of my mom's had a Space Invaders pinball machine down in his basement, and he was an older gentleman. He was 83, 84 years old at the time. He's since passed away, but he just had all kinds of stuff stacked up on top of it down that basement, and he also had a Space Invaders video game down there. So we had worked out a deal on both of those, and we go over there and yank them out of the basement. And this guy was like a hoarder. Okay, so we spent 2 hours just clearing a path to get to the two games.
Whoa.
But before we could get them out of there. So that was my first game. That was I got that January 2010, and it's just kind of progressed from there. Don't have too many games. Certainly not as many games as some other guys in the hobby. Until today, with the addition of the baby pack, I didn't own a game any newer than 1980.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a Firepower over there. Of course, the Space Invaders was in 1980, and then Old Chicago, and then a Space Time, Bally Space Time, from 73. And then a couple of projects back there. But I used to be a musician. Spent a lot of time in the bars, playing pinball machines on breaks.
Mm-hmm.
In between sets. So it's always been there. It's just that now that this is my full-time hobby.
Mm-hmm.
I've laid back off of the music stuff. Got kind of burned out on that. You get burned out spending almost every weekend in a bar for 25 years.
I would imagine so.
It gets very old very quick. So, but this hobby here is a whole lot different than music because everybody can get involved. Michael's involved in it. Michael and I are working on this 8-ball.
Whether he wants to be or not is
no. He's
as far as the hobby.
Yeah. He's actually into it. He's the one that stripped that whole play field and took all the pictures and everything.
Excellent.
That's his game and that's his baby.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's the one doing that. Angie loves it. My wife, Angie.
Does she help shop games and all that?
No, she doesn't really help shop the games, but she scrapbooks all of our pinball adventures.
Oh, cool.
She's always got a camera. Any party we go to or a show or anything like that we go to, she's always snapping pictures and making collages, doing the scrapbooking thing, and she loves playing too. She beats me about 50% of the time.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Keep each other on your toes. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she's funny because she thinks she doesn't know a whole lot about it, but she knows way more than she thinks she does. And she'll pop off a stat or something here and there. I'm like
taken aback.
Good job, girl.
Well, that's great. And what's your history with EMs? Because you've got a good mix of solid state and EM.
Mm-hmm. The EMs I was kind of intimidated by at first. Because you look down at the bottom relay board and there's all these wires and everything, and then you roll out the schematic that's 5 foot long,
right,
and you see all these things that connect and everything. But once you get to looking at the schematic and knowing that this goes to this that makes this work,
mm-hmm.
That's just the secret. Then the games are labeled very clearly in the bottom what goes to what. This relay does this relay does that, and I'm 49 years old. So when I started playing pinball machines when I was like 6 or 8 years old, there was no such thing as a digital display. Everything was electromechanical. And, about 77, 78, when the place I used to play at started getting in these Evel Knievel machines and Mata Hari and Bobby Orr Power Play that had these flashing numbers that, I just thought that was the neatest thing in the world. But my earliest memories of playing were all EM pinball games and pitch and bats. I'd like to get an old EM pitch and bat sometime. Mm-hmm. That's on the bucket list too.
You looking for Williams with the Running Man?
Yeah, I played a lot of those, mm-hmm. but there's a lot of them I played too that just had the animated lights, mm-hmm. For the baseball players in the black box. But yeah, I always loved a good old pitch and bat game too. Yeah. So I guess I'm kind of telling my age, but that's okay.
Well, that's great. So, do you have any plans to add a bingo to your collection? Now, I know you just moved out the Turf King here, but bingo's a different animal.
The prerequisite for a bingo to be in this house is it has to have 4 legs.
Okay.
That can be taken off. So that I can get it down here easily enough. Turf King, if anybody wants to look at it on IPDB, there are no legs. It's all one piece.
Floor length cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Well, good news. All the bingos have legs that are removed.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. As long as I can break that down and get it on a dolly, it's welcome.
There you go. All right. Well, maybe next time I come, I'll bring a bingo.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. So, exactly how far did you come?
I came, from Richmond, Virginia, and you mentioned we're in Salem, Indiana. So I haven't done all the math here. I think about 12 and a half, 13 hours.
12 and a half, 13 hours to pick up a game. Mm-hmm. Is that a record for you?
That is probably a record, yeah. I think so. Now, I've done more driving in one day,
mm-hmm.
but I have my family with me and all that, so things take a little longer,
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, but I'm excited, like I said, and you're just over the border from my grandparents actually live in Kentucky, which is
mm-hmm.
a bordering state.
Right.
So we're hanging out with them and having a good time. My grandfather is a big into antiquing. He's been kind of a picker his whole life.
Yeah.
And so he's excited to see this game.
Oh,
so
good.
I'm going to show him.
Good. Well, I'm so excited for you to have it, and it had to be destiny or something like that, because when I got this game, I didn't know you. I heard you on a previous podcast say, "Oh, I'd love to have a Turf King."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I've got a Turf King.
What do you know?
Let's give Nick a call.
Let's talk. Well, I appreciate it very much.
You are quite welcome. I'm very happy to see you get it. Yeah. Very happy to see you get that game.
I'll certainly be posting a lot of pictures and pictures of this game, so anybody listening can see those too. And I'll be posting some audio journals, hopefully with my daughter, about how we get it going and everything.
Very good. So, yeah, I'd be curious.
Look forward to hearing that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Well, Steve, just make sure you clothe that baby.
Oh, I will. I most certainly will.
Because the ghosts aren't taking care of her.
Yep, she'll have a good home.
Yeah. All right, that's great. All right, well, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
I want to thank my guest, Steve Ridge, for coming on the show and discussing some about the Turf King pickup. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.